Happy New Year!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ranch Roleplay Podcast episode number 2. Last one was a giant success, so we're going to keep that streak going by today. We've invited in Benny T and Bird. My name is Just Gaming. I play the little red-haired mayor in Valentine named Rain here. I came up with the idea with Dip. We had a little bit of differences in ideas because he thought he was going to be in game and I thought it was going to be out game. But
and you won, I guess.
I win. All I do is win. We just spoke about that with Benny. He'll be happy to sing that for you or do it in a poem. Dip, you take it away.
I'm Dip. I played Douglas mainly, and one old dude you might have seen once. Don't matter. I sell and grow vegetables for 16 hours every day, and that's pretty much all there is to it. And then I do this sometimes. Now,
why do we do it?
Bit of a breathing space. Well, we do it because we thought, like we mentioned last time, all of these kind of activities that we have where we and the people that we invite have a way to speak to the community and, take the community, interact with them directly. And every time we've been doing that, every time Ranch RP has been doing that, it's been a huge success. But there has been very, very far in between. So what we want to try and do is, okay, let's say we're going to make it something smaller. Not necessarily like it was at the anniversary, where it was a bit more than 3 hours. But a weekly thing where we do about an hour. And then we cover as many topics as we possibly can, be that staff topics or the community as well, RP questions. And today it's LFM stuff, legal stuff, law and all that. That's why we brought in these two experts that may as well introduce themselves.
Experts?
Experts. That's it.
Wow. Yeah.
Expert number 1, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Is that you or me?
That's you, Benny.
First to the table.
That's whom?
It's you, Benny.
Okay. I didn't know if that was one. I didn't know if I was thing 1 or thing 2. So hi, I'm Benny. I have played a ton of characters on this server now. Little bit parts and things like that. Probably the most known that I've done have been Isaac Huckabee, Cooper Cassidy, Luther Dalton, and for those of you who have been in Rhodes most recently, Emmett Dawson, which has been a lot of fun. And so we've been having, I've played a myriad of characters. I have been role-playing, I always like to say, since I was 14, when I made my first cleric in a D&D game, and I played with a group of my friends, and my buddy's dad was our DM, and we played for forever and forever. And that got me into roleplay, and then about 3 years ago, I started doing this, and I'm really excited to be on the podcast and be sharing some of my little RP experiences and thoughts about law and LFM and talking with you guys. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Happy to have you here. Now, come on, Bird, say something.
All right. And then my name is Bird. And I'm a member of the LFM community, but playing the lawman since day 1 on the server. And then I also played my friend Blondie and George Gretchen and a plethora of other big fellas on the server. I like doing law stuff. I like creating stories. I really like Benny. And I like you guys. And I'm very excited to get this thing on the road. So, hello, everybody. It's good to see you guys. Oh, and Pappy. Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, don't forget Pappy. Pappy. Yeah, well, so to create a little bit more of a transparency, as mentioned earlier, we invited you guys in because you are literally some of the experts. You've been here the longest, and you have worked within law and done so much shit for, holy shit, all that shit you've done for law. And yes, we are allowed to curse, but you've done so much to further not just the RP on the server, but everything when it comes to law. Like when it comes to, let's just start with Benny. When it comes to when it comes to Huckabee, correct me if I'm wrong, but you just started out as I'm not gonna say nobody, right? But you started out and you just ran a honey glazed apple shop in Rhodes. Then you ended up being like this big guy running the whole law department, basically.
Hucks Story was one that was very unexpected because I came to Ranch on the back of having done a lot of DOJ stuff at another server. And I came here with the full intent of I just want to run a general store and I just want to live this simple life and sell my candied apples and my apple cider and my pet rocks. And I was like, that's all I want to do and it's going to be fun. And then I was like, I'll start doing some defense attorney stuff on the side. And then I started playing defense attorney and I started winning, which was uncommon for a lot of defense attorneys for them to start winning. And so then I started winning and then it eventually started to get to a point where there was a vacancy and it just came up where the law it was really, I credit the two marshals that really pushed me into it. There were three and it was Sharp and it was goodness, who got eaten by the bear? That sounds so awful.
Romero.
Who got eaten by the bear? Romero. It was Sharp, Romero, and Fitzpatrick. And Fitzpatrick, they had all really convinced Isaac to join in as Attorney General, and he just kind of moved his way up and ended up working for the law and getting really involved in that. And it was a blast. It was a lot of work. It got really stressful toward the end because of the fact that it was just every time I got in, I was getting 17, 18, 19 telegrams. So Huck had a crazy journey. But
hold on, how many telegrams?
I would log in, usually to 18 to 21 telegrams. That was typical. And that was daily. If I missed 2 days, it would be 40. And that would be a common thing. It would be just people from all over. It'd be law. It'd be common people just wanting to telegram and be like, hey, I have to tell you about this horrible thing that I saw. And I'm like, well, you're person 18 to tell me today about this thing. And, it would be, if somebody were to look at Huck's body, it's just full of books of cases. On his body, on my storage for that character, it's just book after book after book of here's information I took down from this person and from this person. And it was fun playing Huck because he had a lot of legal power, but he also had the ability to really speak to and influence people. And that was a lot of fun. So the journey on that character was a lot of ups and downs, but it was a very fun arc to go through.
Was it wouldn't that have been extremely fucking stressful? Just waking up every day and the first thing you got to do when you wake up is go to the telegram station and then you got to answer 20 different people.
It was. And I tell people the craziest thing about all of that, and it's why I don't really and a lot of people are like, well, why don't we have an attorney general now? Why don't we do this? And it's because of the fact that I often look at it and I tell people, I'm like, it's a lot of role play and it's a lot of time, but it's not only that, it's impossible almost to have time with other people, to have time with yourself. You have to only have time with other people, and you're kind of so attached to everyone else's story that if you take a day off, you feel kind of you're depriving someone else of their story. And so my stance on it, since I did it and since other people have kind of done it, is it's not a big role that needs a big fill, but it's something that's cool if it can be done, but it is such a hard RP demand that it doesn't it is, like you said, very stressful. And it is you miss a day or two and you're whose story am I holding back, or who needs time that they're not getting. And it eventually turns into you're doing so much for everybody that you get very little time to go and tell your own stories. And it does get stressful.
How did you balance that? You said you wanted Huck to be this kind of, laid back civ general store thing. And obviously you've been going through a big change when going from that and then all of a sudden to, you said, the backbone of the law. How did you manage to integrate that in how you saw your character and you wanted your character to be?
I have very good friends who talked me through a lot of it and who would let me have moments where we would talk and I would be frustrated and I would be like, I don't know what direction to take this story in, or I don't know where to steer this. And it would be a lot of conversations of well, have you thought about this angle, or what about this? And then we would kind of have these conversations of how the character thought. And so a lot of it was, having a good support network of people that also role play and can kind of help you story craft so you don't feel so pigeonholed into one area, because oftentimes when you role play, you have a vision of the character and it's hard to let that morph and it's hard to let that change the way that it might need to. So it's nice to have other role players and other people that can then kind of step in and go, well, try and change it this way, or it's very workshopy. And I had that, which was a great support network. And then the other part was I just kind of took it on the chin as best as I could, and I tried to make sure that I was giving as much as I could to other people while still getting some stuff for myself. But again, having good friends that were, when you had a slow moment to come along and give good roleplay. Bird and I rarely ran into each other on Huck and Bird, but when we did, it was fire every time, and it was always good dialogue and good back and forth, and there was always a story to be told. So it was, same thing with like Rupert and Cora and like so many people in Huck's life were important, but they just, because Huck was such a busy character, he didn't get the time to spend with all of them that he wanted to. But they helped a lot in, it's I think it always boils down to how do people deal with stress? Well, having good people around you that help you deal with the stress. Like I had good people that helped me deal with it. So
yeah. So when it comes to just to draw that into the LFM part of the server and being staff, obviously you're head of LFM right now. Is that did you want that position based off of the experience that you had with Huck? And what are some of the things that you thought that you wanted to like maybe change or bring into it?
I mean, to be frank, I hadn't planned on heading up LFM. I hadn't planned on really doing. I hadn't planned on being staff. I came here with the idea that I was just going to role play and do whatever. And then Ozza G came to me one day in my DMs and he said, "So when are you going to apply for staff?" And now he's retired and I'm still here. So haha, joke's on me. But no. I hadn't planned on it, but it was just one of those areas where I saw there was a need, and I knew that I had some kind of a unique way of looking at it. And I've done a lot of DM work, and I've done a lot of story crafting work. I say it all the time. This is, I'm a very big believer in RuPaul's "don't be humble about things you know you're good at" statement. And my degrees are in creative writing, and so I have, a lot of experience with narrative and understanding narrative and story structure and character and, good, writing dialogue and understanding that. And I like getting into roleplay communities and getting the ability to kind of see how the system works and then alter it, because I've played so many different tabletops and I've played so many different role-playing games that I always am like, okay, well, what's the balance? Where's the mechanical part of it, and how do we mechanically make 11,000 people play together in the same rule set? And I like doing that kind of DM work. So it wasn't something I had necessarily planned on, but and it's something that I've actively fought at points, to be completely honest. But I've always been down to do the work, and when I see there's a need or when I see there's something that needs to be done, I'll devote myself really fully to it. And that's my biggest downfall, is that I'll get so into it that I'll like deny myself stuff. But it's working in LFM, especially with Bird and with Parrot before, has been really easy because they've been good teammates and they've been good, heads with me. So it's been a journey that I hadn't expected, that I didn't necessarily plan on, but that I feel like I've been able to make a lot of good impact with, and I feel like I've been able to do something to help out. So that's really nice,
Is there some of those that you can mention? Like, because I'm sure there's plenty of people out there thinking, so what was LFM like half a year ago? What's it like now? What's in the works here? Like, what are we looking at here? What can you talk about? Goodness. What can't you talk about?
Bird could probably give you a better feedback on that than I could. He's been on LFM since day one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So back in the day, we were a little bit jumbled. We on LFM side, we have gone through 5 different reworks of who's in charge and who's doing this and who's doing that, and the team itself needed to find a good synergy within itself. And I think it took a while, especially, I think at first we were a little gung-ho on making changes, and we weren't really asking the people that were having to play these changes. And I think as time has progressed on, we have learned as a staff team, as LFM, that we need to be fully transparent with people. We need to figure out what it is that they like, what it is that they don't like. How can we improve this experience instead of just bombarding and saying, this change is going to happen, deal with it. And I think once we all got to that point and we started doing that, that was a big changing point in the team. And then I think when Parrot and Benny were the heads and I was one of the co-heads, we started to finally get that synergy going. We divvied up our spots. Go here in doctors, go here for DOJ, kind of set it in stone who can do what, who's good at what, who can put their input where it needs to be. And then now where we're at, myself and Benny as the heads, we have a team that we're directing to where they need to go, where their strong suits are, and we let everybody have their input. And most importantly, we're talking to each lawman individually from their departments, getting our feedback. And I think where we are now from a year ago, I think we've gone like 100 times better than what it was, and we're going to just keep seeing that increase. I'm sure there's going to be some hiccups, but that is expected. There's always going to be growing pains. But that's my input from that.
How's that changed, LFM?
How has that changed, LFM? I think it's gotten people into a point where they're able to have like a dialogue together versus just kind of throwing their opinions at each other. And that kind of made us all hit a wall. And I think now that we have everyone kind of on the same page, everyone gets their opinions heard, and we can kind of discuss and weed out what we do like and what we don't like. So I would say it's been beneficial.
That transparency is a big part of it, and that communication is a big part of like how Bird and I really feel about LFM, and in just in role play in general, is that a lot of things that people ask for is just communication, and just making sure that nothing changes just because it happens. We want to make sure that there's communication, there's understanding, like Bird's saying, that everything is communicated clearly. Because I've seen and I feel like a lot of people's experiences in servers is, especially with legal factions in general, that the people at the top tend to just kind of go, this is how it is, and now you'll adjust, and whether or not you like that, then, sorry whether or not you didn't see this change coming. Bird and I have really tried to be like, hey, let's have a conversation so that when the change does occur, it's not a 3.5-hour Discord call where we're all like trying to sort out the information as to why this happened, and let's put the horse before the cart kind of thing, and actually go in the way that it's supposed to go. So it's been really nice to kind of have those conversations and have that clarity, and I think that it has really made an impact in how people view not only LFM but how people kind of view law in general, because I think people feel. And just in what I've seen, I see people more willing to openly criticize or openly willing to comment or critique. And I feel like that's a good sign, because it means that people are willing to give to the conversation. And as long as the community is willing to give to the conversation of how we can continue to make law better and improve, that's always going to be a step in the right direction. And that, I think, has been the key change that has positively impacted LFM from all of that.
So it is for some of the. Let's just open up a little. I think it's called a can of worms here. What are some of the things that you guys see? So you're both very active players on the server, but you're also part of LFM, head of LFMs. You've also both played or still actively playing within LFM, a role within it. What are some of the things that you see on a daily basis that you think that should be that should be changed, or not necessarily changed, but done maybe a little bit differently or improved upon? It could be anything from Porch Dwellers. We might as well open up for it right now, because I think that's what a lot of the people, including myself, are interested in. How do we get rid of this mentality? Or yeah,
Benny, you were right. Yeah, I can do that. So, all right. So this is a personal opinion on this, I'm assuming.
Yes.
With that, if you want to, the way that I've always seen it in roleplay, I'll kind of give like an example. On the last server that I played on, I had a group where I ran the bounty hunters, and at first, the bounty hunters that I had in the group, they were kind of wild. They were still kind of like trying to learn how to get their grasps on roleplay. A lot of it was they just kind of wanted to shoot people. They wanted to be hyper aggressive, and eventually we turned that into a big story arc, and that got people together, and they started improving on their roleplay. But the only way you could do that is if you have some sort of guidance for that. So if you're going to be someone who does above and beyond, but then you're also one of those people that just sits on the porch, you're never going to see improvements if everyone is spending time with you and you're showing the same thing. So the best thing that you can do, which is going to take players, are going to have to do that. A lot of people talk about the porch sitting. I've been in law, and I've seen law go out and do their thing plenty of times, especially if you'd rather have law sit on the porch and have no one in town, and then all this stuff happens. citizens will get mad. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. All you have to do is push them in the right direction. Like, all right, I'm burning. All right, you deputy, you, come with me. You're going on patrol. Let's go. And I won't take no for an answer, right? It's just a character. I'll grab someone and we'll take him out. You know, I've taken LSO deputies down to Lemoyne, and we've talked to the citizens in the town. I was the sheriff of Blackwater for almost a year. I used to, have my people make sure they know everybody in town. Make sure you know every single citizen, what they do, who their family is, what's their job, all that kind of thing. It really just takes the players to push that, and they have to be that kind of example to make other people not fall into the same tropes that everyone kind of shits on them for. Because I know that there is a lot of people that are actively going out and doing law work, but it sucks when they got to take that 10, 15 minutes on the porch and they kind of get scrutinized for it.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, of course, because if you just came back from like an hour of patrol or something like that, and you've been handling it, let's say you're an HSO and you're out there on the Emerald Ranch, and there's been a massive shootout, and you're now going out there to chase off some bad guys, and you come back, and you've been on the scenario for like an hour, maybe 2 hours, you come back, all right, we just need like 10, 15 minutes just standing on the porch, just talking shit right now, and just clear our minds. And then but the problem is that when people in town, all they see is just that, oh, now there's a whole group of big group of lawmen just standing around the porch doing nothing. Well, they don't see that side of it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that what you're talking about there is kind of this, and it's sort of this weird TikTok mentality that I think people need to have this day and age, which is when you see something, you don't have the context. You don't know what's happened before that or what's happened after that. And when you see lawmen gathered on the porch, you don't know what's happened before they were gathered on the porch. You don't know what's going to happen after they're going to be there on that porch. That may be their 30 minutes of the day that's quiet. That's them sitting on the porch and, enjoying that little bit of time before they have to run out. Now, do I want people doing that for 8 hours a day? Absolutely not. I want you to be active. I want you to be building relationships with the people in your towns and your communities. And that's even in our guidelines, is this idea that, hey, if you're not doing active law work, like, do something that builds up the community that you do law work in. Like, go out and talk with people, play poker, go drink, go, do something that makes your character a character. And that's
so you're
not
just a badge.
And well, that's not even just a law thing. That is honestly an everyone thing. That's a critique that I always give to just anybody who role plays, is do whatever you can to make your character really be a character. If you're finding yourself, like, if it's really easy for you to slip into a character because you just feel like it's so you, do something to change that up a little bit and make it a little off kilter and give it something that shakes it up a little. And I think that if law, crim, civ, I think across the board, if you see everybody start to do that more, you'll start to see more story and more narrative get developed, because all of a sudden there's going to be more conflict arisen. And not just in the sense of like person to person, but in the sense of like internal, because now you as the player have a conflict with how you present the character. So all of a sudden there's more going on there's more going on in game, and that's again something that law can do, that doctors can do, that everybody can do. This idea of be more than the role your character plays, be more than a lawman, be more than the doctor, be more than just the civilian. Give them a flavor, give them something that makes them unique.
Yeah, but maybe some of the problems, right, is that when you are law or a doctor, you kind of the face of the server when it comes to playing other. Because if no hate on Dip, he's running a perfect ranch out there, but he's not as much involved around with like criminal cases and day-to-day people the same way as someone who's going out there investigating and shit like that. Do you know what I mean? Like you're the person people goes to when something bad is happening, or if you see something questionable. They don't go out to Douglas, So you need these people to be able to create a storyline as well, as you say, right? Like instead of just being this badge, because like personally, I wouldn't want to interact with someone who's just this robot that's just there to take a statement and then you'll hear back from him in like 2 weeks. You wanna get to know these people. You wanna get to know Bird, where he lives, where he hides his moonshine.
You're not gonna find it.
You mentioned
have a lot of it. It's hidden.
But
you mentioned doctors there, because I still to this day, ever since I started, to me, IFM was kind of straightforward in the sense, at least understanding what it is, right? But with LFM, can be, and at least I've noticed for a lot of people, it's a bit more. It's a bit more difficult to like completely grasp what factions, what entities do you guys oversee and take care of. So, what constitutes like a legal faction?
So our legal factions would consist of, generally, it is going to be your law, which would fall under MDOR. That's going to be USMS, LSO, WESO, NHSO. That's going to be your doctors, and that is going to be your DOJ. Now, that can fall under other things depending, but generally that is kind of where we lay our hands in. We kind of let REO handle some of the civ stuff, or just admins across the board will handle civ stuff, unless it's pertaining something with lawman misconduct, like on an OOC level, but we'll never really touch too into that because there's other people for that background. But we're just focused on the main legal factions. We call them the ranch official factions, right? So that would just be the ones that are going to be there from the start of the server until the end of the server. So that's kind of our forte.
In terms of government, right? Because we had, I don't know that we still have the magistrates.
We still have DOJ.
No.
And we still have, I think it's just straight judges. I think we do have some magistrates for some simple, small things, but I do believe for the most part it's just judges. DOJ does fall in the legal faction umbrella as well, though.
How do you aim to like extend that umbrella? So you start having more government departments that, okay, we want as LFM, we want to introduce these as well.
So, to me, that is a really multifaceted issue, right? Because anyone will tell you who has an experience working with an LFM or working with legal factions is that law is kind of an endless work. It's kind of an endless, like, you're bringing in new people all the time, you're getting them used to your standards, how you operate, how you do things, and that is always kind of a constant set of work along with doctors. Those two factions in and of themselves are so integral to the operation of the server and how it functions that they're big jobs in managing and understanding and regulating in themselves. So when you talk about expansion, it has to kind of be built on this idea first of, do these essential legs work? And as long as they're working the way that you want them to and they're functioning, then you kind of start expanding outwards. And that's when you start to get things like United States Marshal Service and MDOR and FAS and a DOJ. And you start to get... the little expansions are things like that are often, to me, government networks. But then they have to be something that also will be, like, have a roleplay function without stepping on the toes of other parts of the legal factions. Which is where we talk about problems earlier. A problem that we often run into, or that we ran into before, that we've kind of found a solution to now, is that USMS and FAS sometimes feel like they do the same job. They're out, hunting for, bounties, or they're out hunting for criminals, and they're trying to find people. So we're trying to distinguish those duties a little more so that everybody sort of has their own branch. So expansion is sort of predicated by this idea first that the initial legs of law and doctors are working. And then also this idea that you have a need for a roleplay niche that needs to be filled, by some kind of government or oversight faction. Because that's ultimately what a legal faction is it's an oversight on a community or on a specific area of roleplay. So that's where I, see expansion, and I see it in things like economic stuff. And we talked about, we had a governor and a cabinet, which I really wanted to work, but we had 3 governors leave in the course of a 3-month period, and I was like, well, this is not the time for this, so went back to that thing of let's get the rest of it working, and then we'll come back to revisit this. So the governor and having a cabinet and having mayors and stuff is still something that I'd love to see happen, but it's first the other parts of it have to work and be stable enough so that it's not feeling like we're throwing somebody to the wolves, which unfortunately, kind of happened. Is that somebody kind of was like, okay, we're trying this, here you go, and then they kind of got tossed to the wolves, and now we're kind of like, okay, let's pull back and come back to this. So
So
It's,
governor, the possibility of a governor is somewhere out there in the. It's not forgotten or deleted.
I think somewhere in the future it's not forgotten or deleted. I've always wanted the idea to come back around, and just I wanted it to be really focused, and because I love elections. As a legal person, I want elections to happen. I love the elective process. I think that there is so much role play that can come out of it. Campaigning, going town to town, having debates. Like, all of that can be so much fun for the players, and it can bring so much life and depth to the world that I love that. And so I'm all for it. It's just a matter, again, of the rest of it has to work.
Yeah.
And it has to function in a way so that, when the governor and his stuff comes in, it's not like, okay, well, they don't have a defined place, because that's a role that should have a really defined function and place to work from.
Yeah. Bird, I got a question for you. I've been sitting on this for a little while now. I need to know.
Right.
I need to know.
Yeah.
It's probably this is probably good for you. So
It's a good one.
on Ranch Roleplay, we have some corruption levels that you can apply for and shit like that, right?
Yes.
But what are not necessarily what the levels represent, but as a lawman, when you get hired and you become a lawman, you're now a deputy. What are you allowed? Are you allowed to somebody talking shit in the cell? You allowed to give him a good old whooping, not like beat his ass and kick him on the ground, but you allowed to punch his face in?
Yeah.
Because the word, oh, you're a corrupt lawman. It used to be thrown around all the time, but we have rules for it.
So, okay. So if we're gonna talk corruption, I'll give you the little rundown. At least I've been corrupt since like the first. We waited to have any lawman be corrupt until the first, I believe, month or so, and then we were like, okay, we can roll these out. We wanted people to kind of get established first. Having someone start off the bat as a lawman who's corrupt is not always the best. I wanted to do it. I got declined until we finally put him in properly, like whatever. But the way that it is, this is how I view corruption as a role player. And the reason why we have it be an application versus everyone can do it, but we do have one standard procedure of stuff that you can do. And that is your general, like, being a little rough-handed, right? I think a lot of people misinterpret being rough-handed for pistol whipping people constantly and knocking them unconscious, so then you have to wait another X amount of time for them to get a doctor and things like that. Ideally, use it as like rough somebody up a little bit. Maybe have them watch their mouths a little bit. You're supposed to be a lawman. You're not. This is not 2023. I think a lot of people have a really big problem of separation from the times that the game is in to their real life. So I've seen myself, I've beaten plenty of people. I've murdered like 3 people in character already on Bird and Pete, so 4.
Rip Pete.
I've done really horrible things, but people are always just like, oh, that's Bird. And I wish more people would kind of look at corrupt lawmen like that. I think corruption should be you're not an evil person. You're not going to be corrupt to be a gang member or this and that, though we will allow that in special circumstances, Virgil Meredith being one of the prime people who did that. But I want it to be, you're still looking for justice. You're still trying to find a way to make everything right, even if it's in a more darker manner, rather, like torturing somebody, which is very rare, but like really getting somebody hard. Corruption also can entail turning a blind eye. I turn my head to a lot of things in character because I think that criminals need to be able to have their story breathe and for it to go. And plus that builds a repertoire with my character where people can look at it and be like, oh, this guy's not going to immediately arrest me for doing the smallest of things, which I think is really good for story building. So long as those aren't the criminals that the second I say something to them, they shoot me in the face. But when it comes to corruption, people can be a little rough. Then they can apply to ignore crimes, take bribes, murder somebody if the story is really, really fitting for it. But obviously, we don't really put the force CK on anybody. That's kind of like in their story. If it fits and you want to try for it, go ahead. You're still going to need permission from the other player. I think that's just the fairest way to do that. But yeah, for corruption, I think it's a fun story builder if you do it correctly, not if you go, I'm going to be the most aggressive person and use all of my power on another player. For story building, good. For game mechanics, can be rough.
Yeah, all right. I don't know if you heard that, Benny, but we were just talking about a little bit of a.
I heard everything. I had my headset on.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But no, it's good. I just think that there's a lot of people out there because I remember when we used to play RP on different servers as well, on different game and different platforms, and people were like, oh, corruption this, corruption that, corruption here, corruption there. You know, it gets thrown out a lot. And it's just good for people to know how the corruption system actually works for us in here. Yeah. So, but when just to get back to the FAS and the marshals, well, how do you just like how I see FAS is that if there's a bounty out for someone, they get to go out and apprehend them. That's it. But how do you distinguish, just so everybody knows as well, between FAS and marshal? Because I know there's a lot of people thinking there that a lot of the FAS are seen as people who are just mini marshals, basically.
So people see that. I think it's just because they have the full jurisdiction to go wherever they please, and they do hunt people. I will say the difference being is a U.S. Marshal is conjoined with the DOJ, right? They work for the courts, they work for Ellery, they work for Garfield. They're supposed to be people who work for these guys, right? And I think what a lot of people don't see is MDOR has FAS in it. FAS, right now, we're in the midst of kind of seeing where a conjoined effort might be. I know Shali is talking to Darcy about a couple of things, maybe conjoining the two, because they also do seizures, which we don't do as the marshals. We'll go on a warrant and we'll get the evidence and everything, and we could like check if the place is like doing things they shouldn't be doing, but that's going to be MDOR FAS's thing, where they go and they actually seize the business. They put like all the posters on there, like, you know, this is being seized by the federal government, things like that. There are differences from an outside viewpoint. If you're not in these factions, or maybe you just don't spend enough time and get to know these people, it seems like they do the same thing. Sure, they hunt people, but the way I always see it is I would like for FAS to be kind of like the dudes that they're not law, they're not entities of law, so they can't physically arrest you. You know, they can get a little more down and dirty with everything. They go and be the bad guys, they get the bad guys. That's the way I've always seen it personally.
Okay, so it's not like an FAS agent can go in town and start acting like a deputy or something like that. No. Okay, so it's not like someone's about to rob the bank and the FAS pulls their gun out. They're under the same rules of vigilantism like everybody else is on the server.
They can be deputized by a lawman. So like if they're like, let's say there's not enough law in town, and there's an FAS agent that rolls through, and you've got 6 in a bank robbery and 3 lawmen active. One of the lawmen might say, hey, we're gonna, we need you to come along and help us in case something goes wrong. So in those instances, something like that may happen, which is not too unakin, but they're not like out doing arrests in the same way that law are. And this is also where it's becoming to that point of like, we want to really start distinguishing tasks and distinguishing, who's doing what and how they're doing it. Because that's going to make that a whole lot easier. And, you were talking about, FAS, kind of being this working with REO and USMS working with DOJ, and the law sort of working with the communities that they serve. So, everybody has a different sort of entity that they serve. And I think as long as we're tying it to that, like as long as, REO is just working with FAS, or as long as FAS is working with REO to like an MDOR and all that stuff to make it happen as far as this money collection goes, and the focus is on the money rather than on the justice of it, then it's kind of... it works a little bit better, and it sort of melds. My brain completely went off of the rails with that one there for a minute, but I'm going to stop my sentence now.
But what about so I know the whole thing that we can get deputized, because basically anyone can get deputized if they're a trusted member by the sheriff's office, I guess. But I'm talking about, let's say you're in Valentine, there's 20 people there, there's not a single lawman in sight, someone starts robbing the bank. The FAS has no power to go over there and try to stop it and negotiate or anything like that. Do they?
Technically, no. I'm going to be honest, though. I'm very much a free-form kind of role player. If there is a good enough reason for somebody to do something, like there could be an FAS member who's been part of law before, they might have that training. People could disagree with that. Obviously, everything is going to be looked at per circumstance. So I can't say like that across the board, like absolutely yes, but there can be times where things like that can happen. Of course, it's always going to have to be, does it fit the story? Does it make sense? Because the way I see it is, we have like Darcy, for example. Darcy and Bird are pretty close. Like I was with him before he like kind of made it up in FAS before he took over, and he's always been kind of a dude that's been like, I want the money. So like the way I would prefer them to be, which is how I used to run my bounty hunters back in the day, is they're not really there for justice. They don't care. Go get your shit. I'm gonna find you later if you get a bounty. So it's like just don't tread where you don't need to be, and you'll be a fine man with me. I don't know if that just was an intentional rhyme or not, but
but how about
It was a good rhyme.
thanks.
how about down in let's open up another can of worms here. Well, might not be a can of worms, but let's talk about a little bit about New Austin, more so Armadillo.
Sure.
How it works going down there as not only as a normal standard lawman, anyone from WESO or NHSO, Lemoyne, we all know that, hey, only marshals are supposed to go down there, but we see time and time again that it's not just marshals that go down there. Sometimes there'll be FAS, sometimes there'll be other lawmen deputized or marshalized. I don't know how it works. How does it work?
Sure.
What's your thought process when you want to go down to Armadillo to either find someone because you heard they're down or some shit happened down there?
Generally, I'm gonna stick with the way that I always did it. I know that it might not be the correct way, but back when I was the sheriff, if somebody from Armadillo, Tumbleweed, anywhere in New Austin came to my jurisdiction and fucked with my people and would like, they used to have the Silver Dollar pawn shop, Corn used to have, and they used to go take shit and then they would go sell it there. I'm going down there. You're not gonna come rob my people and like I'm just gonna be like, oh yeah, keep coming and getting loot pinatas, which is just silly. But the way that it's technically supposed to be is United States Marshals have that jurisdiction to go down there. The same with the town marshals, which would be like Ellery's Alt, Frank Cortland. Those people are supposed to kind of look after them. The way that Armadillo role plays it though is they'd like to be kind of not self-governing, but like, you know, they look after their own. That's the way that they would intend it to be from what I've gathered so far. But that does not mean that the law are not allowed to go down there, because they are. Now there might be role play things that circumvent that, and people are like, hey, don't come down here for XYZ, and you can either honor that or not, because at the end of the day, a lawman is not going to not do his job because a bunch of people that are known criminals tell them they can't go somewhere. And I do love my Armadillo people, but law are always going to do their job, or they're going to let some shit slide. I've had times like Corn the other day. There was a situation, and I chatted with him and kind of, you know, was expressing my feelings of find them. I hope I find them before you do, but you know what to do. This is your town type of thing. I kind of like it like that. It's more rugged. It's supposed to be like the Old West. But yeah, when it comes, there is a way that you're supposed to do it correctly. But again, we can't police everybody all the time unless you just want to have nobody ever go down there. There's never any conflict, so sorts.
Yeah, because, you know, when you come down there, there's also, well, everybody knows that, you know, when it comes to RP, not everybody changes the way they RP, but your RP reflects on who you meet. So if you know that you're meeting, let's just say, someone you absolutely think is a troll, you're not going to entertain them with your RP, because you go like, my RP is not, my time and RP is not worth this. Like, well,
Sure.
I'm going to fuck off. Right. But if I meet, like, you know, if I meet Huckabee or Bird or Peter Walsh or something like that, I go out of my way because I want RP, because I get something back from them as well. But I feel like that kind of is the same thing when it comes to, especially, like, it's everywhere on the server, but especially down in New Austin. It depends on who comes down there, because if Bird comes down there, you know, Corn's willing to talk, Jet Rebel is willing to talk, the Heathens are willing to, you know, have a conversation at least, you know. But if some new marshal or someone else that's a bit more of a hothead or not as established, they come down there, it tends to turn into not exactly a shit show, but the probability is a lot higher.
It turns into a shit show 100%. With that, I've always the way that I've explained that out of character to people is there is going to be just like in the real world. I know some people are chronically online and they seem to forget that there is a way and a manner to speak to certain people, and I think people that are adaptable and learn how to talk to all different types of people are going to be better off. So if you're one of those people and you play a hard ass, which I consider my character to be quite a hard ass, but he knows there's certain places you got to change up the way that you're speaking in order to get a different outcome. So if you go down into a place where they're known criminals that have been shooting people, have been known to get into these types of situations, and you go down there because you have a badge or vice versa. If they come up thinking that they could do whatever they want, it's gonna be a pain in the ass, because you're just gonna find yourself at a wall, into an argument, into an escalation, into a gunfight, and some people are gonna be happy, and some people are gonna be very unhappy, and that's just kind of the situation that I have found so far. I think that's more of a player-driven thing, that they kind of need to either adjust themselves in character, or they can keep repeating the same thing and keep getting the same outcome.
Betty,
It's all about that intent.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was
Also,
going to say, I was
sorry,
going to
Pete.
follow up. It's all about that intent. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Dip. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm gonna open a different can, so you just keep
Oh
boy.
No,
going
I
with
was
intent.
okay. No, I was just saying that, like what Bird's saying. When it comes to people rolling down to Armadillo and things like that, to me, it's all about intent. If you roll out of West Elizabeth and you're going out of there and you're swinging guns and we're gonna go shoot that place up and get them a piece of our mind and then that's, which is not to say that can't happen after a certain escalation and things have gotten to that point, but I think if you go down, and this is to say of all role play, I think if you go in with the intent of, I'm going to do all of the talking that I possibly can, and when all of the words are out of my body and I have no words left to give to this situation, then I'll see where it escalates to. As long as the intent is the exchange of dialogue, I think that, there's nothing wrong with deputies rolling down to Armadillo and sitting down across the table from a bunch of the known criminals in Armadillo and, putting the gun on the table and going, so if you come in my town again, we're going to have to do a lot of talking, and just kind of putting that intent on the table. I think that, it's just all about how you frame it. And like Bird said, I'm with him on I'm a very free-form role player. I'm a very, if the story makes sense, hang the rules. If the story makes sense and the story that's being told is one that works and nobody's hurt and nobody else's role play is affected by it, tell all the story you want. The rules aren't important in that instance. As long as both parties are having a good time and they're getting something out of it. So, if the law are rolling down into New Austin and into New Austin and doing all that, as long as they're having a good time and both sides are enjoying it and it doesn't feel like it's oppressive, then it's roleplay and it's working. And that's what it should be. You should have conflict on the table without it feeling like you're oppressed OOC.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I don't know if Dip wants to. You want yours?
I do. We're gonna try and keep it short because this is also a big one. Bird, you mentioned being able to, as a lawman, follow up on crim RP, like the example going down to Armadillo to the pawn shop and getting some of the things back that was robbed from the people. I'd really like to hear from an LFM point of view on the topic of investigative RP, because we also get a lot of tickets with details not being left when things are being picked up, but also all the way to robberies where it's somebody that may or may not ever lock in again that goes in and robs some things and stuff like that. And from an IC point of view, as to see if they see this and like, why is these things never being followed up on? So what's like the point of view from LFM on that topic of investigative RP?
On the point of like investigative RP, I think if we're gonna talk about like people like not leaving details, or how do you follow up whenever somebody does something and you never see them again, that's kind of a difficult one to really answer, because I can't really answer for people that are gonna go do a robbery and then log out for 4 weeks, come back and do it again. In my opinion, I would just say that's kind of poor etiquette, but I can't do much about that. And when it comes to people leaving details and stuff, there is quite a lot of people who will sit there and they will put details up, and they'll stick out from the rest of the crew. You'll see them leave like, small little ornaments or small little things that will really stick out, and you'll be like, oh, okay, this criminal's leaving me something to do. Now, for the people that don't do that, the only thing that you can really do is you can try to encourage that behavior, because otherwise they're just going to keep doing the same patterns that they're already doing. I played a crim for a long time. Bird was my crim character before I brought him to Rancho as a lawman. You just have to practice it. Sometimes I think people differentiate details with like this, where they think them leaving, there's some footprints here, which unless it's leading you to where they're going to be, it's not much of a help. But things that would help is, let's say I have my character Blondie, who I CK'd. If I did something super crazy with him, I might do a detail of leaves a lock of, like a lock of blonde hair is laying on the floor, and you can kind of, in your head say, okay, there's blonde people, so we're looking for a blonde. We're looking for something with blonde hair. For that kind of situation, that is totally player etiquette. They either have to learn how to do that. We can't really do too much on like enforcing it unless somebody just like walks up to your wagon, straight up empties it. They give you no dues, no me's, there's no details, no anything. That's when we can kind of jump in on that.
Okay.
That is the fact. No, I was just gonna say that is the truth. Is that when if somebody's no/me's, no/dues, and it's just, then that's something we can act on, because then we can clearly see that it's not, there's no role play behind it. It's just being done. But yeah, I'm a lot of /detail work just comes down to role play experience. And honestly, it comes down sometimes to having someone take something of yours and not leaving any details for you to be able to follow up on it, for you to be like, damn it, that pissed me off. For you to then be like, okay, you know what, I'm going to start leaving details because I don't want anybody to be mad the way that I just got mad. So and that's the other part of it, is that law and this is something that I want to touch on just really quick, but law and crim RP and the interaction is conflicting, but it also comes from a place of mutual respect. And that has to be something that all players need to understand, is that the push and pull between law and crim is not just I'm versus you, but it's a place of I want to roleplay with you because I am opposed to you. Exactly. And so there has to be this line of like mutual respect of I'm going to let you push a little and then you're going to let me pull some, and then you're going to push some and then I'm going to pull some. And there has to be that understanding. And with details especially, because a lot of criminals will say like, oh, well, we didn't have time, or we didn't have this, and you don't want to get caught. If they catch one of you because you're leaving details behind, all you've done is give them another detail. Now you get to have the fun of doing the interrogation, and maybe you're the one who has the fall, but then you get to go back to your friends and go, oh, I heard this while I was in there, and they were talking about this, and you get information out of that. So for me, it's don't be afraid to let the push and pull happen, and with the details and how you can regulate that, it's just getting that experience. And when you leave a detail, the tip I've been having in my head that plays a lot is you want to be able to hear the Baldur's Gate 3 narrator in your voice, in your head when you read the detail. If you can read the detail and you can hear the Baldur's Gate 3 narrator going, like, it seems a crumpled receipt lies here, something like that, or with initials it's scrawled in the corner, like something like that, like, and you can hear the voice in your head of like, okay, I'm getting a little bit of story from this detail, then you're in the right direction. But regulating it is a completely different matter.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Dip has more, but I have one that I think is gonna be semi big. Okay. So Sisika. Okay, we had some time ago, we had a big workover with the new Sisika, and everybody was really happy. And Bird even made, what was it, Pappy or some old ass dude?
Yeah, it's old Pappy.
Yeah. Everybody was really stoked, and then all of a sudden it died down. But at the same time, we have I believe we increased the time you're supposed to be spending in Sisika, because we now opened up for more roleplay out there. But it died out. Like, what's being done from LFM's side right now to not only have lawmen go, how can we punish these guys most, like, what's the maximum punishment we can give them, but at the same time, what's being done with Sisika?
So, that one, I don't want to give away too much, because me, Benny, and a lot of the people in LFM, along with Law, are having discussions about something that we would like to change about Sisika. In the meantime, we realize that right now, people are getting charged really fucking hard for a lot of time and a lot of money for store robberies and stuff, and the payouts really aren't that awesome. So we did bring back offline timers for the time being. We have something in the midst to do something with Sisika that is probably going to be really big if we can get the okay from the rest of the lawmen, which so far so good. That is going to be some time away, and I want that to be quiet. For now, I would imagine Penny does too, because I think it's going to be a big surprise, and we will make an announcement when the time comes for that to be discussed. But there is something in the works. We're paying attention. We know people don't want to sit in Sisika. It's essentially a soft ban. We are working on that for you guys, so just hang tight on that one.
Good. So are you? But what about what about the whole now? Because this is something that I personally experienced on the server as well. But I've also heard a lot of people experiencing this. Yeah, some lawmen, not all of them obviously, but some lawmen, they try to push for maximum punishment every single time. As I understood it, the penal code is the max, but you can go if that says 50 days for this, you can go 20 days if they were
Correct.
You know,
Absolutely. We encourage people to go less than the maximum amount of time. And we've said that as many times. I know when Parrot was with me, when we were, as long as Bird's been in here, we've always said, hey, don't go max time if you can help it. And even beyond that, not to just not go max time, but if somebody's got a sentence for 45 minutes, do something with them. Go take them out. Go make them hunt and then sell a bunch of pelts to help the butcher and make up a story about how he's got kids to feed at home and go talk stories with them when y'all are out hunting. Do something that engages their character and gives them a chance to either change or grow from the experience they're having with you. And Sisika should exist, and it should be there for people when they do serious crimes, and for them when they got hours and stuff. And okay, I can't spend 3 or 4 hours with you, but now you got to go do your time. That sort of is what it should exist for, in my opinion. There are some big changes that we've got coming that we think are going to be really exciting for all of how Sisika works and how law kind of functions in general. There's stuff on the horizon that is going to shake it up, but it is also going to add a lot of capability and possibility to what Sisika can be. So,
yeah, and to give it to add on to that, to the whole giving them something to do when somebody's in a really long sentence. Valentine, I went there probably earlier this week or last week, and there was a guy in there, and he still had 45 minutes of time left to go, right? And nobody was taking him to Sisika, so I took him out of the cell, and I gave him an option. I was like, big fella, do you want to rot in here, go to Sisika, or would you rather work and be an honest fella and maybe get your time reduced? And the guy was like, obviously he's going to fucking take that go. At first he was being a little timid with me, so I kept kind of pushing it forward. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just leave you in here. And then eventually he was like, wait. And I grabbed him, and I grabbed the deputy who arrested him, and I was talking to her. And I was like, I think this fine young man can easily work off his time. What do you say? And she was like, sure. So we took him to the back, and there is an outhouse. So we made him clean up the shit in the outhouse, made him scrub it down for 10 minutes. Then I had the deputy that arrested him take him all the way to the Valentine Saloon, and he cleaned all the floors, he cleaned the tables, he cleaned the upstairs. And as soon as he was done, he's gone. You know what I mean? And I think things like that, especially for crimes that aren't as serious, that should be a bigger thing that people really get done. I don't think you should just be arresting somebody and then throwing them in Sisika and not at least spending time with them if it has to be a serious amount of time. Now, with that, there are also criminals that refuse to give anybody anything, which I'm sure there's a million lawmen who have already felt this, and there's crims have probably had to roleplay with these people too. You'll get them in a cell. All you need to do is take a mugshot. They won't even turn around for you. I'll be honest with you, if you give me that much hard of a time, I'm going to be a little more rough on you, and I'm going to knock you out because I have to get that picture somehow, and I'm not sitting for 50 minutes for someone that seems that they're just mad at me, and they're not giving me any roleplay. So when it comes to that, people are going to get a little frustrated. So if there are any crims out here, I suggest you give a little something when you get arrested. Just a little bit.
And that goes to that mutual respect line.
Yeah.
If part of the role play of being a crim is knowing that you're going to get caught and cooperating to some degree. I understand the give a fake name and, if you're putting on a voice and things like that kind of stuff I can get behind. But if you're literally already in the cell and arrested and now they just need you to get a picture, even if you give them a fake name at that point, at least cooperate to get the picture, cooperate to get the basics. Give them role play. And I think that's kind of the core of what we keep coming back to again and again is just make sure that it's about the role play and just make sure that you're given story.
Are all lawmen, when they get hired, are they all aware that they can take people for less punishment? Like Bert just said, are they aware that they can take them down to, in Valentine, take them down to Betty's General Store and make them clean all the cans of beans?
They should be. If they're not, we do try to tell people. The thing is with law, they get so many waves of people, and sometimes new people get caught into a department that's in a big arc. They might already have something crazy going on. They might have these things slip. I do think that it would take command and deputies that have been there for a while to show that you can do these things.
So
instead
it's
of
not
just
in the
saying,
SOP
now you're out of my
or
way.
any OOC thing or anything like that.
Well, everyone is told that in the penal code it says it's the max time. That's the max. It says
Yeah.
max in big letters. That means that is the max amount of time that you can send them for that crime. And then there's a cap how much you can actually send them for. That's to your discretion, which everybody should be taught that. That is your discretion on how long you send them. There are some lawmen that are in the thing that think you can't be, it's called being buddy-buddy with a criminal, because you give them a lesser sentence. In my eyes, it's more just like, hey, I'm kind of giving you like a bone because this is a roleplay server and I don't actually expect you to be in prison for 65 days. You know, like, I'm going to let you go off about your day. Having to spend 30 minutes with a criminal in a cell is rough enough. I want them to get back out there. And you just hope that they're not those people that immediately after they get out, they decide they're going to do something wild. Because in my opinion, that's just that's poor role play.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's like an ending note. This can be a big one. It's actually up to you two, because it's a question for both of you. We'll just start with Benny. Doing what you're doing for Ranch RP in LFM is a ton of work, both IC and OOC. So why do you do it?
I mean, oh God, right? Excuse me while I have a serious introspective moment about my life at 36 years old. No, I do it because I really enjoy storytelling. I really enjoy, and it's especially communal storytelling. Like I said, I've been a D&D fan and player since I was 14 years old, and I have so many memories of friends and I staying up until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with character sheets, making campaign after campaign, character after character, just backstory after backstory, and then just loving writing and storytelling since I was a kid. And then playing all these like JRPGs and really intense video games. I just loved the craft of telling a story. And then as I got older, I realized that not only was it a craft, but there was also like rules, and these RP systems had setups and systems, and I got really into sort of the balance of that. I have made lots of custom D&D races and classes, and I started getting into that aspect of it. I worked on some forums and a GM and an MMO community, and so I always liked community management, and even when it gets stressful and everything, because and I think anybody who's worked any position on staff will tell you that, it gets to a point where you do something that you think is great, and then everybody comes back and they're like, you suck and you're terrible, and why would you do this, and what a horrible change, and you don't know anything about it. And you're like, bro, I'm trying to do the best I can with my free time. You're like, I'm just, but when it works and it works well, and it functions, and you see everybody get excited, and it to me, it kind of takes me back to that teaching moment of like, working with a kid that's difficult is the most frustrating thing in your entire life. But when they click, and all of a sudden that little light bulb turns on, and they're like, oh, I get this. And then you see them like grow and develop. Like, there's a part of it where like being a part of these communities and managing and helping in that way, and then seeing somebody, because I've had lawmen where I've had them in tickets, and I'm like, hey, you can't do this, this is not okay, like, try doing it that way. And then they'll come back and they'll be like, I never thought about it like that, and that's really cool, and I will try and go about it that way. And to see somebody grow and develop as a role player and know that I'm getting to have an active role in that makes a lot of the stress worth it. So I'm all for doing it because it feels like it's something positive to people who also love this.
Very good.
All right. For myself, I've been a part of playing roleplay servers back since I was like a kid playing Gary's Mod, and I've always kind of found it to whenever I join a server, you either get some admins that are really cool, or you get really not so fun ones to be around, and instead it's like, no, you listen to what I say, and this is how it goes. I am not, as management knows, I am quite aggressive with my way of thinking and my ideals. And one of the reasons why I even joined up in the first place was because, coming from my last server, and I saw the things that were happening with certain individuals, especially law factions. I come as a player first. My role play is way more important than me governing a server, which I would hope that all admins understand that, because we're all here to have a community where people can play, people can enjoy themselves. The reason why I wanted to be an LFM the second we got in, because I did not want to follow the same mistakes that I've seen in other servers, where things get pushed on you. People are not allowed to have the creativity and the freedom to role play a character they want to play, because there is a little box of words that really restricts your role play and says, no, you cannot do this. Which is, I've always been on the firm belief that if you have a story going, you can do it. As long as it's making the rules and that people are having a good time on both sides, it's fine with me. Another one of the big things, like Benny stated, sometimes, correction is a lot better than punishment. I've always kind of been on that firm stance. Unless you're using a crosshair, you're metagaming, like I'm willing to talk to you about something. Like, let's say we see a scene and lawmen get into a shit show, and maybe they didn't handle it perfectly. Lawman's a hard thing to do. You really have to watch yourself. You're being watched way, way, way more than any other players on the server. People care about every little thing you do, and you need to do it perfectly or else people are upset. So I'm always willing to talk to a lawman and be like, hey, people are upset. You got brought into a ticket for XYZ. Do you see why this is a problem? And people will say, yeah, or they won't, and they'll just get mad at you. And if that's the case, you're not willing to learn. That's when I'm more willing to be more aggressive on that side. But I think I wanted to be an LFM because I wanted to see legal faction on the server really get to a point where it can be, because I think they are the focal point for having a story be directed and guided into a good situation. Lawmen can be the thing that lets you sit in a jail cell for hours, or they could be the dudes that kind of say, hey, let this story go. We'll build up, we'll come back, and then you have a rivalry with someone or a bigger repertoire. That's one of the big reasons why I wanted to be an LFM, just so we could have everyone have a good experience. And I know that if I can oversee it from the law side, maybe I can help out. I'm sure there's going to be times where Benny, myself, and the rest of the team upset everybody, but we're going to do our best to not have that happen. And if we do have it happen, get it corrected, and then have everyone have a good time.
Great answers.
Great, fucking,
Thanks.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Give a little bit of a insight about how you guys feel about RP as well in general. I like that. But we do have a couple of things now, because we're going way over time right now, which doesn't bother me at all.
It's
I'm
just
enjoying it.
expect that to be how it is every time, because
Yeah.
I even tried to compress this as much as I could, but it's good, but it is impossible to manage.
Yeah.
To make it, fit into that time. But that just means that, we're having a good time and we're getting asked these questions. I have a ton of different ones that I will save. Consider this an invitation to come back.
Absolutely.
I'm totally down. I mean, it's a big thing. So I'm a camera. People listening to me talk words, of course. Please.
Yeah, we love
twist
talking.
my arm.
I'll talk to Benny for 8 hours
Yeah.
about cooking. So
Well,
get us on
I'll
anything.
show
We'll
up
chat.
and gladly chat.
if you guys
No,
are
next
down
week,
for it,
cooking.
same time, same place, same procedures as last week.
Yeah.
All
Same
right.
bat time, same bat channel. Sounds like a plan.
We do have, before
especially when you get those other things with the Sisic and stuff like that. We'd really like to hear more
Mhm.
about when that is. But
And we
until
might
then,
have some more updates and things we can share. So yeah.
Hopefully.
We do before we stop. We do kind of want to start this thing. We didn't have time for that last time, but we do want to open up for questions from chat. Just to have a little 5-10 minutes where chat can ask you guys questions about Benny, about Bird, about LFM, preferably about LFM, but about you guys as well. So if chat has any questions for Bird or Benny, feel free to. I know a lot of you have asked in chat while the podcast has been going, and obviously I haven't been able to address them because we do have an itinerary, a schedule to otherwise Dip will get on my back. Bird's skincare routine.
I use a hemp moisturizer.
If you have any real serious questions about then feel free to ask them now, and they're on the spot, and they can answer them now.
And I'll answer anything. I have no shame.
Here we go. Dottie goes, "What's your ideal lawman role player look like?"
Me. Just kidding.
Depending on where you are, that's a loaded question. Personally, fit the times, be a person that it all depends on how your character is. I always think of the Lemoyne people as they're the more uptight, more by the book because they're so close to the city. Valentine have to deal with a lot of shit, especially the stuff that they stand in. So I would imagine they're a little more rough and rugged. And West Elizabeth, from my character starting out there, I've always seen that as it's this focal point of right between the new world shoving itself in and the old world just down the road in Armadillo, kind of always showing you that the frontier is dying and that this is the new way the world is. Just kind of fitting where you're at, having a story and just having a character. My ideal lawman is a person and not just a dude walking around with a badge.
A player. Someone that plays a character.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we all want, man, at the end of the day. But great answer.
Mm-hmm.
Benny, what's the current direction and desired goal for law as of right now?
The current direction is that we're really pushing this idea of lawmen are facilitators of roleplay, that they're there to help tell stories, that they're there to help extend the narrative. And so we're having a lot of conversations around how do we do that? How do we extend that narrative? What small hurdles can we put into place in order to make that narrative last longer, in order to give criminals a chance to tell those stories and allow lawmen to tell those stories without it feeling so back to back of doing the job. So I mean the current direction right now is to solidify law's position, and then to make sure that everything we're doing moving forward is about the narrative and about the storytelling, and what that entails and what that includes.
Yeah. All right. This one we already addressed this one. But Amdet Pod goes. Any consideration in establishing a governor and/or legislature in the future, or any deeper political positions?
Yes, but as stated before, it's again all predicated by do the two legs work, and then is there a need, and will it have its own unique function? Because that's the tricky part with legal roleplay, is that you have to have it where it's the law and the doctors have to be functioning, and then you have to have a need for that specific faction and what that faction will do. Which isn't to say that doesn't exist, but it's we want to make sure that it's really clearly defined and that it fits within everything that we already have.
Right. And that would be the same thing as don't put too many eggs in one basket. Focus on the main things right now. Things can be added when we're at a healthy point. Right now, we just want to make sure we get that all established.
Noted GY boy goes, do you both think the DOJ is doing well, and what areas could they look at to improve?
I think the DOJ is doing well. I think the only thing that they could really improve in is kind of that's more of like an us thing of like looking into it a little bit more. Probably just some more people. That's it. I don't have any complaints about the DOJ at this moment. I just think they need a couple more heads on there. That's it. Unless Benny was way deeper in DOJ, so he might think differently on that.
I see the DOJ people handle a lot of court scheduling, and there is some fun stuff coming for them down the tunnel as well. And I see 3 or 4 judges handle case after case after case. Big shout out to them for being able to schedule it, and for making, again, as someone who roleplayed DOJ, for making your RP about other people's stories and other people, rounding those out and giving them that closure. To me, DOJ is doing really, really well. The only thing that I wish we could do better, which is kind of the eternal problem of DOJ, is I wish we just had more judges and more lawyers, but that's always going to be the eternal problem, is finding people that are actively wanting to do that kind of role play, and then who, invest their story in that direction.
Your boy Azak goes, not sure who to direct this as. More of an observation. Since being in law, the average crimes I see are moonshiners or serial killer. Very few and far between any other crimes. Often find I'm in the military rather than a lawman. How do we improve altogether?
I find that is a player-to-player basis that is really hard to dictate on our end.
Yeah.
Across the board, Azza, I've seen all your characters. You do a fantastic job of what you do. If people had more of a mindset of being these unique characters who don't just go off and do
the scripted stuff like a bank robbery or moonshine, or they want to be a serial murderer or a cannibal. There's a lot of things that you can do, but it really is going to tend down to the person and what their creativity level's at. That's not something I
100%.
think you can truly enforce besides having chats. My friends personally, I hang out with Benny, I hang out with Peter Walsh, Porter, Arden, Jess, my fiance, like all of us, and Goldie, and we all sit there and we talk about our role play. We have a discussion at the end of the day, and we say,
Thanks for
"Hey,
mentioning me.
yeah, I don't like you," and then and then we have we have our discussions, and you've been a part of them. We all discuss like, "Hey, we did this scene, we did this and this. How do you guys feel about it?" And everyone always gives their honest opinions. They say, "Hey, this could be better if you do this, this, or that." I think it's good to talk with your groups and not think everything you're doing is the best. You have to be able to
100%.
realize the other side. So, like, if I got into a gunfight with a criminal, I'm like, did I escalate that? Is that my fault? Can I do better? Will I do better? And that should be the same side for lawmen, civilians, and criminals all together. But that is a mind shift that people have to work on with themselves or the players that they play with.
Which, and in that sense, like Bird said, it's all about how creative you can be. But if you're looking for kind of a rudder to steer your creativity, and you're like, well, I don't know what to do, or I don't know, go read the penal code, see what's illegal. See, like, if you're looking for more crime to do, if you're a criminal and you're like, I feel like these are the only things I can do, go look for what's criminal. I would love to see more forgeries. I would love to see people forging like house document. That there was, for those of you who don't know, Brandy Clune is a little clown that runs around the server, and he made a fun joke one time of recreating these seizure documents from MDOR and going around and placing them on every fucking property in the server. And he just placed them everywhere. And so people were mass sending telegrams to REO, and they were like, why are you taking my property? I paid my loan. Like, tickets were coming in left and right. And we had to kind of hunt down and be like, what happened? And we found out who it was. And in character, they found out who it was. And they like pulled Brandy aside and they were like, this is not a funny joke. They were like, this is a huge, but it created a lot of like stir and like it was kind of this mystery of who's doing this to only find out it was this clown. It was kind of a great little moment for everybody to have. So, like, if you're looking for, like, ways to do creative kind of role play or things like that, go and look at the penal code, see what's there, and go, how can my character with the story that I'm telling get involved in something here that's not the usual store robbery or bank robbery? What if I decide to go pretend to be a doctor, impersonate? I never see somebody do that. Oh, I'm a medical doctor. And then they're, like, just running around with med kits and, like, putting, like, just pouring alcohol and getting people horribly infected, like just oh, I read a couple books, like just something like doing stuff like that. I think is where it's again about that creativity, but it's also, if you're looking for that rudder, look at what's illegal and then plan around that.
Oh yeah, great advice. I want to wrap this up because I think this is the last question we have before we pick it back up next week. So Bro Game has a question here, and I want to follow up on that a little bit. So for any new people here on the either here or thinking about wanting to become a lawman, like, who is, in your opinion, who do you think are great lawmen that you could learn from, that you could watch, observe, and be taught by, that not only are great lawmen, but great our peers? And I'll start myself. I'm going to say Charlie Lynn. Okay, I'm gonna put that out there. I think that he creates, he plays a character, he gets involved, he goes out of his way to actually not just be a lawman. He engages in stories that could get himself in trouble or even fired, or killed by criminals as well. But I'll have to hear your guys' opinion on some of the current lawmen that you could learn from.
I know this one fella. His name is Old Bird. Story is old as time.
I do like Charlie Lynn quite a lot. I had my other character, Blondie. I had a story with Frank Campbell. We had the gun store, and there was this big altercation that happened, and Charlie Lynn was the one who came in and he gave us a lot of role play. And his character plays as, he's this very timid younger man from what I've been gathering so far. He's not this big, fuck you, you got to be scared of me. He plays as a dude who's just trying to get his job done. I really like that he is able to get people's stories off the ground. He gives criminals stuff. He gives them a reason to want to hate him. He gives lawmen a reason to want to hate him. And, his character deals with the inner turmoils of that. I've had conversations with him on characters on Bird, and Bird likes him. He's a young man, which he feels like he's a city boy, so he's never going to truly relate. But, he gives his old man advice and hopes that he listens. But I quite like a lot of the lawmen. I didn't get to role play with Coates until I finally became a marshal, but every now and then I'd go to Valentine as the sheriff and I would have a meeting with Coates and we'd chat and we wanted to get a lot of things going. I've seen a situation that happened with one of Azza's characters, and I believe Benny was there too. Maybe they tried to rob a store and then we had him in the thing, and then they were holding a stick of dynamite. It wasn't lit or anything, but they had it. And he said, I'll light this motherfucker up. So Coates had like a big, long, maybe 20 minutes, and I believe it was Diego Hart as well. And they kind of talked him down, and the dude ended up getting out there. We ended up catching him again because he didn't uphold his end of the deal. But, there's too many lawmen that are able to do so many different things with their stories. And I'm not going to be in justice of being able to name every single one of them. But the lawmen who are out there, and you guys are actively trying to give people a story, and you're not just trying to throw people inside of a cell or just go up and pistol whip somebody because you think that's funny and you knock them out. Those are all the MVPs in my eyes.
Definitely a big point to that last one. It's all about finding the ones that are really trying to make sure that they're engaging in that story. And there are some, people that just stand out immediately to me. Coates is always going to be one of my favorite lawmen. I always have enjoyed the way that he's played his character. Ilva and Diego Hart are two that stand out to me. Charlie Lynn stands out to me. And the thing that makes them stand out, and this is, kind of going off of what Bird said, it's the ability to talk and then listen. It's the ability to, and I say this all the time, but as a lawman, the minute a lawman shows up on the scene of a crime, the criminals are no longer in control of that scene. They're no longer the ones that, like, it may feel like it, but the truth is that they are now responding to whatever the law does. And so as soon as law shows up and starts talking, now the situation has gone from, okay, we're calmly getting money and we're holding our hostages, to, okay, now we have a new factor and variable of people that things have to change. And the best lawmen listen to what criminals are saying and then process it and respond. And I think that's what makes people like Darcy, Charlie Lynn, Ilva Hart, Coates, I'm trying to Kimber. You got a ton of people in LSO, NHSO, WESO, Knox. We just talked to a bunch of WESO people yesterday that were all talking about how they're characters, and they are. And it's because they listen to what's going on in the world and the community around them, and then they respond in that with their character. And that, to me, is what makes a great lawman. And when you're thinking about the kind of thing that will, like, what the examples of a good lawman, those are definitely some solid ones, but it's really just about listening to what people are saying and responding in that in a way that feeds that story and that narrative. Because a lawman is a roleplay facilitator. They're there to continue and carry the story.
Yeah. I forgot one. Knox. Knox I've been playing with since he was on Romero. I saw a scene. I don't know if anyone else saw it. They basically had this guy come out and he put a table in the middle of Blackwater and made Knox sit there and pretend to have dinner while they're robbing the bank. And they had a hostage who was sitting on a dynamite wagon, And he sat there, and this man, he gave his all. I've been role-playing with him since my last server, since his criminal character, Felix Zapata. I love that dude. He is one of the very few people that I have an enjoyable time every time role-playing with, because he is a character every time he makes a character. So that's one dude I forgot that I did not mention, but him for sure.
Yeah, Knox is great. Knox is great. Great character. He always puts it, 100%.
The other thing I would say, if you want to play a good lawman, I just wanted to say, lastly, if you want to play a good lawman, give yourself time for the character to do other stuff besides law. Don't come in and go straight to law. Go ranch. Go work at a general store. Go feel out the community you live in and where your character fits in that, and then join law. Because it'll make it more engaging and it'll give it more depth. That's the only last thing I want to say about that part.
I have the last question that I know of. Oh, sorry, Bert. Go ahead.
I was going to say,
server, please go show West Elizabeth some love. You have a gang of fucking awesome role players in that law office.
You do.
Dude, I've been in Westo since the start of the server, and there's always a month of like there's a lot of role playing, and then nobody goes there, and they all go to Lemoyne. Spread out a bit. Go to West Elizabeth. You'll be surprised by the lawmen there. Give them some fucking love because they're sick role players, and I think you guys would all get a lot of enjoyment and some storytelling if you did go down there.
Strawberry's popping off lately, and Blackwater needs a lot of people to move to it. So give Blackwater love because the law over there are awesome, and they're banging it out.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, so last question. I have no idea what the question's about. But someone named Dipperlicious says something about what about RLA?
Wait till the ranch script.
Yep, ranching script. That is one where I can honestly say everything for that is ready to go, but we're waiting for the ranching script to go into place because there's just not a need to fulfill that yet. Once that need is there, that branch is ready to move and ready to go. We just need people.
Yeah,
so it'll probably have the Sisica problem for a little bit where it'll be filling people, but once it gets moving, that's going to be moving.
Yeah,
So
we're going to be
Ranch Livestock Association?
Ranch and Livestock Association.
Okay.
Yeah, and Darcy is in the chat. Darcy, when that happens, get ready, brother. You get to suffer through it, and you don't get to say anything about it. So
Yeah, you will
enjoy.
That one.
All right. Well, if
You
that's
heard him,
it,
Cal. Get to work.
yeah. If that's it, I wanna thank you guys for there was so much shit we didn't even get through. We only got through about half of it. I want to thank you guys for joining.
We got next week.
Yeah, we got next week. We're gonna be here the same time next week. Where we're gonna be talking a little bit more about law, DOJ. Also want to get into a little bit of how it feels going from being a lawman to now being a criminal. I know Benny took that route after, and I want to learn. I want to hear all about that. Burke can get a little bit of insight about that. But we're gonna be here same time next week. 3 p.m. EST, which is 9 p.m. Standard European time, I guess, at GMT +2. Thank you guys for stopping by, and say goodbye to Benny and Bird and Dip. And we'll hopefully see you guys again next week.
Thank you, fellas and ladies.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
All right.
See you next week.
Thanks
Oh,
for
shit.
having us. It was real nice.
And,
thank you
before we
kindly.
go, we need to host someone from. So we got Ethel Murphy, Frankie D,
Ooh,
Corn Wallace,
Go. corn.
Yeah.
Go
Corn.
Red Corn.
All right. So
Yeah, corn's always going to be my pick.
Can someone write his Twitch chat?
I need radius.
Uh,
Is it Sergeant
on.
_Wallace or Sergeant _Corn
Yeah.
Wallace or something like that? Can someone link
Here
it
it
in
is.
the chat?
Oh, I just put his at.
That's it. Sergeant _Cornwallis.
Okay, so if I go like that, yep. All right. Should have thought about that before. All right, guys, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
We will be back again next week, same place, same time, and yep. Now it's time to wave and say goodbye. That's it.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Adios,
Nice.
cheers.